Hello, everyone. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Come on, come all, boys and girls. It's time for another. I guess these are technically called Raiders Daily episodes, right? That's what Bleacher Report would have us call them. Raiders Daily, Thursday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I already see people in the chat. Let's get the chat rocking and rolling, as I like to say, whether you're watching live on Bleacher Report or after the fact on my YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders. You know what to do. Drop comments, whether they are live or whether they are in the YouTube comment section. Just making sure I can hear myself because this is a different setup. I got a new computer, a little bit of a different angle. We got to get things changed a little bit for our next stream, not tomorrow, but next week. It's going to be completely different. I don't want to give that away if I'm not supposed to yet, but everything looks good on my end. So we're ready to go here. Look, I don't think I've gone live on Bleacher Report since the Chip Kelly of it all. So we are going to discuss that a little bit. I'll do my best to not try and repeat what other people have said on this app about Chip Kelly, although I do want to give my take on it. We're going to talk about Max Crosby on Radio Row. Radio Row, by the way, maybe my least favorite thing in all of sports, where these players and these coaches and these former players and coaches go on every single news show and talk about the same thing. And you're going to hear Max Crosby talking about the future of the organization and him being traded and blah, 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 blah for the next 3 days. So just get ready for all the Radio Row nonsense, right? Chip Kelly, the new offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders. It is official. We didn't get Cliff Kingsbury. And by the way, let me know whether you're watching on Bleacher Report or YouTube if this angle, if you like it, if you don't like it, is it a little too low and up at me? I can go a little higher next time. We're gonna try different things. But for right now, let's discuss Chip Kelly, and I'm gonna put a poll out because look, when you hire somebody, especially if the stature and of the name recognition of Chip Kelly. I had friends texting me all over the place that weren't Raiders fans. Rod, Chip Kelly, thoughts? You're going to have a visceral reaction to that, positively or negatively, right? So you may have been asked this question right when we hired him, 3, 4, 5 days ago. But I'm going to pose this question to you right now as I give my take on it a few days removed. Oh, this is so much smoother with the new computer. A few days removed from actually hiring him, digesting it, thinking about it, getting the numbers in, because that's important. The salary that he got, because we're going to talk about why he accepted a job like this. And that's a narrative that's going around a lot too. Is why would he take a job like this? No quarterback, AFC West. We'll get into that in a second. But my initial thought, and look, there is, I will say, 33% of me that's in the wait and see mode, right? I need to watch this unfold with the building of the roster, with him actually on the sideline with Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham. I don't know if Patrick Graham is going to stay up in the booth where he was a lot better or come back down to the sideline. I don't know if Pete Carroll has a philosophy on whether or not to bring guys down from the booth and have them on the field. And we'll talk about, I see JS says 6 million helps. We'll talk about the 6 million in a second because that's a very important part of all of this with the Raiders moving forward, the money that they're spending on these coaches. My initial visceral, there's that word again, reaction to the Chip Kelly hire was good. Like it a lot. Better than Darrell Bevell. Probably the best offensive coordinator option out there that wasn't going to become a head coach like Ben Johnson. Look, I've been saying it. Ben Johnson was my number one candidate from the get-go. Pete Carroll was quickly my number two option after I heard that was a real possibility. With all that being said, the Ben Johnson hire for the Bears, I'm liking it less and less for them because he seems to be a guy that we'll say marches to the beat of his own drum. That's what we'll say. Chip Kelly can run an offense free from the pressure of other coaches having influence on him. And what do I mean by that? Pete Carroll is a CEO head coach, right? He doesn't call the offense, he doesn't call the defense. He's the rare quarterback that became a defensive coach. And now as a head coach, we all know he was responsible for partly creating the Legion of Boom, one of the greatest defenses of the last however many decades, right? And I've seen the comparisons of Chip Kelly to Josh McDaniels, another McDummy, right? Unless you're talking about Ben Johnson, another McDummy. We'll talk about that too. I do see the Josh McDaniels comparisons to Chip Kelly. Here's the thing. You're talking about Ben Johnson, my bad. But the comparison still stands. If we had hired Josh McDaniels to be the Raiders offensive coordinator 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever it was, that probably would have worked a lot better than when we hired him as the head coach. And we didn't hire Chip Kelly to be the head coach. We hired him to run the offense, right? Obviously better than Luke Getsy or Scott Turner or Darrell Bevel, especially with the mind of Pete Carroll and Spy Tech and Brady behind the hire. So my initial reaction was I liked it, but I was concerned because I wanted to see how his offense had progressed from that, whatever that was, 11 seconds or less, no huddle with Michael Vick, and we're going to trade LaShawn McCoy. There was a lot of bad stuff that happened with him I almost said Seattle, in Philadelphia. But if you watch how his offense progressed in UCLA, then to Ohio State, he's taken a step back from the run and gun style. He's incorporated this ground and pound, two horse running back run game. And he's been able to take the onus off the quarterback. He's taken a guy like Will Howard, who looks okay. He's an okay prospect. We'll see if we take him. And he's turned him into a guy that's gone from a little bit of a game manager to a quarterback that just won a national championship pretty handily. As much as I would have loved to see Penn State in that game against Ohio State, because I went to Penn State, it's my alma mater if you didn't know, I do think Ohio State still probably wins that game. A little funny tidbit, my two favorite teams, Penn State and the Las Vegas Raiders, have stolen the DC and the OC. The OC went from Ohio State to the Raiders. The DC went from Ohio State to Penn State. Penn State made the Ohio State defensive coordinator the highest paid coordinator in college football history. We have now made Chip Kelly the highest paid OC in the NFL. So this is sort of a weird connection there for me. Chip Kelly has learned from his mistakes of calling an offense. And he said as much in interviews. When you become the head coach, you've got the CEO vibe to you, and you lose a little bit of that edge in terms of coaching a position or coaching an offense or a defense or a special teams unit. And going back to Ohio State with Ryan Day, that was Chip Kelly prime. That was his final form. The best he could have done with the roster that he was given. He's taken everything he's learned from his time where it was rocky as the head coach, although the offenses that he coached were good. And he's learned from the UCLA days where he had no recruits, nothing. And he's learned from the Ohio State days. And taking the onus off of Will Howard, making the game as easy as possible for the quarterback position is something that Pete Carroll talked a lot about. Great defense, run game, great offensive line. The quarterback position is the hardest position in professional sports to play. We got to make it as easy as possible on these guys. And that's what Chip Kelly was able to do with Will Howard. So I'm in between the love it / wait and see mode. I said 33% of me is wait and see, and that's 33% of this chat is wait and see. So let me read a little bit about what people are saying about Chip Kelly in the chat before I get into why exactly he took the job and this narrative around the roster, which is, it's fair to say that it's not a good roster, mainly because of the quarterback, but it's super frustrating to hear people say, it's a good hire, but who's the quarterback? We'll get into all that in a second. I do believe you were talking about Ben Johnson being the next Josh McDaniels. Okay, Raider Raider Foo Chris. Interesting name. The only thing I'm worried about is Chip is all the stories of bad player relationships. Besides that, I think he's going to be a great offensive mind. Well, here's what I'll say about that. The offensive players, Jeremiah Smith, is that his name? The wide receiver on Ohio State, who's like the best wide receiver in the country, was extremely upset that he bounced for the NFL. So there are guys that don't like him, and there are guys that love him, just like John Gruden, just like Josh McDaniels. There are people who get spurned by coaches like LaShawn McCoy, who was traded, who don't like him, right? And you're going to have people talk about that. But then, there's young kids in college that are really upset that he's left Ohio State now. So I do think that concern is valid. I do think there's a chance to learn and grow. And again, we're not hiring him to be the head coach, right? We're hiring him to be the offensive coordinator, which even when he was a bad head coach, he was still a good offensive coordinator. Same thing with Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels was a bad head coach. We had the best receiver in the league, and Devontae Adams, the best running back in the league, and Josh Jacobs, and that was in part because Josh McDaniels knew how to call a good offense at the very least, right? Chip Kelly can focus on that and not have to worry about dealing with all the extraneous stuff of being a head coach because Pete Carroll is already here and is doing that at an elite level. Pete could have just hired his friend Breville, but instead he hired Chip. Pete is smart enough to know he's a way better option with a few exclamation points. I don't disagree. I think him and Brady and Spytek were like, let's break the bank for this guy, right? And we'll talk about that $6 million in a second here. And let's go get the best coordinator out there. Somebody who interviewed for the job last year. I don't know if he wanted it or didn't want it because of AP, but they decided to go Luke Getsy instead of Chip Kelly, which was a mistake. Raider Fu follows up. Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to be Bevel. Chip got me hyped in his presser, though. My philosophy is 3 words: just win, baby. And I think when an older coach says that, it means a little bit more than a Ben Johnson coming in or a Liam Cohen, Duval, and coming in and saying, just win, baby. Oh, could you imagine Liam Cohen saying, just win, baby? I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I'm going to have nightmares. Unpinning this poll. Let's talk about why Chip Kelly took the job, which, again, I think has a lot to do with the new ownership group, the organizational structure. Thanks to Tom Brady bringing in Spy Tech, Mark Davis bringing in Tom Brady, who brought in Spy Tech, who is now bringing in Pete Carroll, right? Because I've seen a lot of people say, and this is so frustrating to me. It's so incredibly frustrating. And I'm sure I've said it on podcasts before, but I really want to dive deep into this. I say it a lot in my Raiders Discord, ALLaBorde Raiders Discord, if you want to join. I say a lot of the time to the people that go, look, Pete Carroll's a good hire, but they don't have a quarterback. Who's going to be the quarterback? Chip Kelly, look, he can run a good offense, but who's going to be the quarterback? Like, their roster is not very good right now, blah, 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 blah. And yes, while that is all true, those are all completely fair points, right? Here's what is also true. There's a game on Sunday, right? Ever heard of it? The big game? The Raiders are not playing in that game. The Raiders are not playing tomorrow or Saturday. The new league year doesn't start until the beginning of March or mid-March. Preseason games don't start until August. The regular season doesn't start until September. So for all the people saying, well, who's the quarterback? Can we just wait and see? Chip Kelly did not take this job because he wanted to coach Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Look, I don't know him personally. I could be wrong. But it's who's the quarterback, who's the quarterback. We do not play games tomorrow. But I want to ask you this question because I think it's interesting. When you are interviewing coaches for your head coaching job and for your coordinator positions, I said this from get-go. The coaches are selling themselves to you. But when you are the Raiders and you haven't had a great track record of retaining coaches or putting out the best product, you are also selling yourself to them, right? You got to pitch the plan, the future to these coaches to make them want the job so then they can pitch themselves to you, right? So let's talk about this. And we'll talk about this in the comments. Did the Raiders pitch Chip Kelly on a quarterback plan? And do you think that was the deciding factor on him taking this job? Now, I saw a lot of people talk about. Oh, I didn't send the poll out. Sorry. Now the poll's live. I saw a lot of people talking about the $6 million. Now, look, $6 million is a lot better than $2 million. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with why he wanted to take the job. But Chip Kelly also seems like a guy, and he said as much. I don't know him, but I'm going off of what he said. He seems like a guy that just loves ball. I'm going to coach ball until the day that I die. Like Pete Carroll, right? Like Patrick Graham seems to be. Tom Brady, I'm going to be involved in ball until the day that I die. And he probably didn't need a plan in place to take a job. But I'm sure when he was saying, this is what I can do with an offense, I need a quarterback that can do X, Y, and Z. Hey, Spy Tech. Hey, Brady. Hey, Pete Carroll. Do you have a plan in place, or are we just going to like roll it back with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew? Excuse me. And I do think what was discussed in this interview before he signed on was, hey, we're going to 3x your salary. So that's pretty nice. And here's what we think quarterback-wise. Gardner Minshew's probably going to be gone. Going to have to eat a little bit of that dead cap. It is what it is. We got a lot of money. We can pay for it. Aiden O'Connell's okay. He has a little bit of upside as, a kid who's only played 16, 17 games. If anything, he's a serviceable backup. Cheap, can come in and win you a game or two. Make a couple throws. We got a lot of free agents out there. Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson, right? Comment other people if I'm forgetting. The Joe Flacco's of the world, who knows, right? There's tradable assets. Geno Smith. I referenced Matt Stafford last week. Didn't know Cooper Kupp was going to be on the market. Kelly Stafford is mad that Cooper Kupp is going to be traded. Matt Stafford's coming back. He is now on the market if he doesn't want to re-sign with the Rams. Are they going soft rebuild? Who knows? All that to say, $100 million in cap space, the 6th overall pick. Jackson Dart's moving up on some draft boards. Shador Sanders could fall. There are so many things in place that I'm sure Aaron Rodgers, don't sleep on Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure, I am positive that they discussed the future of the quarterback position moving forward. Even Max Crosby, who was on the Kay Adams show, said, I got to talk about my contract. We got to talk about the future of the organization. We got to talk about the future of certain positions. He didn't want to say the future of quarterback because I'm sure he's good friends with Gardner. I'm sure he loves Aiden, but he didn't want, he went out of his way to say Jane Daniels just won the offensive rookie of the year. All right, congrats on Jane Daniels. I wish it was Brock Bowers, but Jane Daniels, you deserve it. Max Crosby didn't want to say out loud, the future of the quarterback position, but he said there was the future position discussed. They absolutely pitched Chip Kelly on some sort of plan moving forward. And this is where I triple down on the take that I have about the quarterback position. I would love to trade for Matthew Stafford. I would give up maybe a 2nd-round pick if we guarantee to get him for 2 years. But I would go 3rd-round pick if it's just 1 year. I would go Stafford and draft a Jackson Dart or a Shador or a Milrow or somebody or Will Howard to learn under him. But if he's not available for trade and Sam Darnold hits the free agent market, I am now tripling down on the Sam Darnold of it all because of Chip Kelly. And every time I see you are a comment that says, you're insane to want Sam Darnold. Did you see how he played the last 2 games? I'm going to quadruple down on Sam Darnold, and here's why. Everybody that tells me, well, Sam Darnold was only good because he was in a good offensive system with good weapons. Guess what, guys? The Raiders need to cultivate and create a good offensive system with good weapons. Just because Sam Darnold only succeeded, quote unquote, because he played on a good roster in a good offense, why does that now mean that if he comes here, well, he's going to be on a bad roster with a bad offense? We're not trying to create a bad roster with a bad offense. We just paid $6 million to Chip Kelly, who everybody in the comments just said they love to hire, and he's a great offensive mind. So if Sam Darnold is only successful in a great offense, in a good offense, you all just voted in the poll and told me that that Chip Kelly is a great hire to create a great offense. Y'all just told me that. And you told me Sam Darnold only worked because Kevin O'Connell. It's not Kevin O'Connell's fault that he's addicted to passing the football and got Sam Darnold sacked 9 times in the playoff game. He's completely absolved of all of that. 2 bad games at the end of the season, granted 2 big games on the national stage, does not take away from Sam Darnold throwing 35 touchdowns and winning 14 games. If I told you before the season started, J.J. McCarthy was going to get hurt, Sam Darnold, $10 million 1 year, is going to start for the Vikings, everybody in this chat would have said, good luck. That's 6 wins. They won 14 games, and now because they won 14 games, Sam Darnold was always supposed to win 14 games? Or is it possible that he was in a bad organization with the Jets? He bounced around like Baker. He learned under one of the great offensive minds of our generation in Kyle Shanahan, and is now playing very well, coming into his prime, with good weapons, great weapons in Minnesota, and a great offensive mind. If he comes to the Raiders and they sign a Chris Godwin, who we've been linked to at SpyTech, or a T. Higgins, or we draft a McMillan, now you've got a number 1 wideout, you've got Brock Bowers, and you've got Jacoby Myers with Chip Kelly calling the plays. It's not Luke Getsy. The highest paid offensive coordinator. Now I see what people are saying. What's going to be the price? What's going to be the price? How much would we pay for Sam Darnold? If the contract is 3 years, $100 million, which would be 30-ish million a year, the Baker deal, right? Baker Mayfield. He got 3 years, 110 to stay in Tampa Bay. That would put Sam Darnold in the middle from 1 to 32. It put him at like 18. Derek Carr, technically, if he doesn't get cut, or even if he does get cut, they're going to pay him, would be making more than Sam Darnold. When we know that in this moment in their career, Sam Darnold is a better player than Derek Carr. CeeDee Lamb would be making more money, just about, than Sam Darnold for 3 years, $100 million. So I've said it. My number 1 option is Stafford. But if he's not available, you have to take a long, hard look at the guy who just played for a team that won 14 games and was a game away from the number 1 overall seed. And look, maybe the pressure got to him. It happens to the best of us. It's hard to believe that was Sam Darnold's first career playoff game, but it was against Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, who, again, is my number 1 option. And I see if we get Sam Darnold, then we don't need to draft a quarterback. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you still take one in the later rounds, and if Sam doesn't work out the way you want to, you bench him. It is what it is. But this isn't like what the Falcons did, where they signed Kirk Cousins to a big deal and then drafted Penix, and it's, we'll just bench Kirk Cousins. It's like, well, you gave $100+ million to a 35-year-old. Sam Darnold is 28. The risk of signing a Kirk Cousins deal with the Falcons is way diminished because Sam Darnold is still in his peak physical powers. All I'm saying is, if the complaint was, or if the theory was, well, Sam's only good because he was on the Vikings with the good offense, that's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to run out a bad offense. And Chip Kelly is a great hire. He's going to run a great offense. You're going to have a baseline of like, this guy knows what he's doing. And Pete Carroll's philosophy is make it as easy as possible for the quarterback. Run the football, protect him, great defense. And I think Sam Darnold, with the Baker Mayfield deal, could be really successful. And it would just be a shame to not go after him because you think he's a flash in the pan, when it could be that he's just becoming what he was supposed to be this whole time. And he is an underrated athlete, Savage Raider says. He can run around. He can run around, man. We will have the 4th best QB in our division no matter what next year. No doubt about it. That's a fact too. That's a fact. I just think Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly think we could win games with Sam Darnold. I don't think that's crazy. And I'm inclined to believe it. John Spytek was a part of the regime that brought back Baker Mayfield on the Baker Mayfield deal that is now being compared to what Sam Darnold is going to get. So, as much as I want this, I'm also just preparing you for this. Pete Carroll said, "We're trying to win right now." And Donuts Duncan, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. It doesn't hurt our future, especially if you play out the 3 years and Patrick Surtain just won Defensive Player of the Year. That's crazy. Wow. I don't agree with that. If you play it out for 3 years and he wins 8 games, 9 games, 10 games, and you drafted a Jackson Dart or Shador to learn under him, then you let Sam Darnold walk or you flip him. And then you go the Jordan Love route, right? Jordan Love sat for 3 years and then he comes in here. I am pro sitting guys. And just because you sign Sam Darnold doesn't mean you can't draft somebody, even if it's with the 6th pick overall. It doesn't mean that in the slightest. Everybody roasted the Falcons for what they did. I thought Kirk Cousins was going to be a little bit better, but now Michael Penix has Kirk Cousins his brain to pick for this whole season. I think Penix is going to be better off because of that. Yeah, they spent a lot of money to do it, but it is what it is. You want to throw as many darts at the board as you can to make sure you get this quarterback position right. And I think Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and John Spytek probably think we can win a lot of games with that version of Sam Darnold. We can make the playoffs with that version of Sam Darnold. Now they got a hit on the roster around him. No doubt about it. But I'm tripling down on the Sam Darnold of it all. And the last thing I'll talk about here is I've seen, but just to be clear, Stafford is my number one option. And Rodgers is intriguing. I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, no matter what, we'll have the 4th best quarterback in the division. That's no doubt about it. Although I think Sam Darnold is better than Bo Nix. Bo Nix had a really good rookie season. So did Mac Jones. Like, let's just pump the brakes. Let's just wait and see. I'm not calling Bo Nix Mac Jones. Let's just wait and see. Yeah, Savage Raider. Imagine Darnold and Genty. Come on, dude. I'm telling you, just have a little bit of an open mind because this could happen. What was I saying? Okay, so no matter what, we have the 4th best quarterback in the division. Interesting take. But that makes me think about the coaching staffs right now. Because you have, John Harbaugh and the coordinators that he got, Jim Harbaugh, and the coordinators that he got from his Michigan days to run his defense and his offense. His defense is great. His offense is okay. I mean, they're running the ball a lot. They think it's 3 yards in the cloud of dust over there. It's time to update the offense a little, Chargers-wise. Obviously, Andy Reid and Spagnuolo. It doesn't get any better than that. And Sean Payton and Vance Joseph running things there, offense and defense. Now with Pete Carroll, I do think you have probably the 2nd best head coach in the division, right? You've got Andy Reid as number 1. Sean Payton's been to 1 Super Bowl. Pete Carroll's been to multiple. Pete Carroll has won at the college level and the pro level, right? Jim Harbaugh is close to these guys, but he's never won the big game, right? When the lights shine brightest, he's never been able to do it. We've retained Patrick Graham, who's a top 12 to 5-ish defensive coordinator. And on paper, Chip Kelly could be a great offensive coordinator. He's the highest paid, so we better be great. So my question to you now, we did this a little out of order, but I went on the Sam Darnold tangent. I apologize. My question to you now is this. Where does our coaching staff rank on paper in the AFC West? I didn't put first because it's not first. It's not even close. Spagnuolo might be the first ever, non-head coach coordinator to make it to the Hall of Fame, and I wouldn't complain at all. The guy's got like 6 championships. And I put another option here that it just comes down to the roster. Like you can only put so much lipstick on a pig, right? And I don't think our roster is pig-like, but it's not great. And we need that quarterback, right? We've got some pieces there. The defense in particular has got some pieces, especially if we sign some people. I do think there is a big-time case to be made that, again, on paper, If this thing comes together, this is now the second best unit in the AFC. I do think it's between us and the Broncos because Sean Payton calls a great offense and Vance Joseph. It is Vance Joseph, right? I'm not crazy. It's Vance Joseph who's calling the defense for the Denver Broncos. That Denver defense was sweet. As good as Bo Nix turned out to be, which it turned out to be pretty decent, that Denver defense was kicking butt in a lot of those football games. And the Chargers, it kind of remains to be seen what they can do offensively. Herbert didn't turn the ball over a lot, but he didn't really pass the ball the whole season. And when they needed to pass the ball in the Texans playoff super wild card weekend series, he was terrible. They don't have a lot of weapons offensively, so let's see what happens. But I do think that offense that they run there is a little outdated, and it doesn't really fit Herbert's strengths. It fits JJ McCarthy's strengths, a guy who can just manage the game. They're turning Justin Herbert into like Alex Smith, and I think it could just get weird there on offense sometimes. So you can convince me that it's third, but I'm using the parentheses on paper to kind of get around the fact that maybe it could be second. But in terms of what we have on the staff right now, we didn't even get into the list of position coaches, right, and passing coordinators that they've hired, which I've really been a fan of a lot of the stuff that they've done. I just realized that I'm hitting the table on shaking the camera. I apologize for that. I do think there's an argument to be made that we have at least the third best coaching staff. Now that becomes the second best if Chip Kelly can get this thing rolling, which is a big improvement from Antonio Pierce, Luke Getsy, Scott Turner, and Patrick Graham, right? Patrick Graham being the only shining light in that abysmal season we had last year. So I just think things are going in the right direction, right? We'll talk more tomorrow about other free agents that we need to resign and how we can improve upon this roster. But in terms of like the coaching staff at this point, I think it's moving in the right direction. And look, I'm hesitant to say that because we've seen times before we got excited about Antonio Pierce, right? No doubt about it. I was excited for Antonio Pierce. I think this feels a little bit differently because there's just a history of guys. Chip Kelly, like I said, even when he was not good at being a head coach, his offense was still top 10. This guy can score points. So let's see what the roster is moving forward. But I think as of right now, we have at least the third best coaching staff in the AFC West, and it might be the second best. I don't know. Comment below your thoughts. Look, I will be on this time tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and then same time next week on Thursday and Friday until the new season, and then it changes up a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching live on Bleacher Report, thank you for joining me again. Another Thursday in the books. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, hit that like button, comment away. Please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.